Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our annual spring financial workshop. Will you please stand for the pledge? Ready? Begin. Ms. Edwards, can you please read the special instructions? I'm calling this meeting to order.
Individuals wishing to address the City Council are requested to complete a speaker card and place it at the podium prior to the item being heard by the City Council. Please observe a 3 minutes for communication, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Mayor, there were 2 revisions to the agenda. Agenda item 4.6, the presentation was added, and agenda item 4.1, the presentation was revised.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Okay, we have communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the City Council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for comments, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Does anybody have anything to say this morning that isn't on the agenda? Seeing none. Well, we welcome you guys, so let's get right into it. Agenda item, first one is annual goal setting. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on any of the items for the annual goal setting? Looks like we do have a speaker coming up, Mr. Ellis. Morning, Joe.
Oh, good morning. So I was curious when the bit about the fire station was supposed to break water that you weren't going to build a new one. It's kind of there's all the fanfare about the good stuff, but then the bad stuff doesn't necessarily, it's weird. I saw that and I was like, what?
Yeah, the costs have gone up tremendously. Got to rethink our plan.
Well, if only there was somebody who told you that exact thing in this room when this whole thing went down, that said, hey, this thing is going to spiral out of control and you're not going to be able to build this for the amount of money that you think. If only there was somebody. That's the issue that I see a lot of times here, is that there's this consensus that all the wisdom is contained within the walls of this building, and it's not. And you really, and I see you do it all the time. The opposite. You do talk to people, and you bring stuff into this building from the outside that makes for better decisions. And the council as a whole doesn't do it enough. The city as a whole doesn't do it enough. That only the consultants or only the staff members are the holders of all the wisdom and the experience, and that's not true. There's people here that know things and do things, that have experience, that can make you guys or help you guys make better decisions if they're allowed into the process, but they're not. And on a regular basis, they're shut out. Like I said, I see you do the opposite, and I appreciate that, but it needs to happen more, and you wouldn't be in these boondoggles like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And, we obviously need a new fire station there, and the prices for everything has just been ridiculous, as everybody in the community knows. That everything's gone up so much more than whatever we've seen in the past. So it's kind of unusual what's going on as well. But we thank you for your comments. Okay, let's get started. We have our agenda item. Sorry, Jacob Ellis can provide a presentation on fiscal year 26 annual goal setting.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm excited to be here this morning and talk about our fiscal year 26 priorities. Of course, we have many more projects than what we have listed on this dashboard in front of you, but obviously when there's, if everything's a priority, nothing is, and so we always take the time each year to try to make sure that we're in alignment with what council's direction is to ensure that we're delivering on what's most important to you as we hear it from the community. So for fiscal year 26, I'm going to run briefly through this dashboard of all of the projects listed. At the end of it, as always, we welcome your direction, feedback, if we need to add something, take something out, or make a revision to what we've listed there. You'll also notice that published with this is a set of statements that go along with each one of these titles. So those are a little bit more specific about exactly what we mean by each one of these. And so I won't read them all. You can read as well as I can. but maybe better. But I will just talk briefly about what each of them are, and then at the end, I'll open it up for any feedback that you have. So, starting on the left for stable finances, one of our priorities for fiscal year 26 will be our downtown 6th Street corridor revitalization funding plan. The purpose behind this is to make sure that our team is assembled and ready to go so that those projects, as they make it through the bid process and we're ready to go into construction, that our funding is there and available to ensure seamless project delivery on all of the downtown revitalization projects. Second project there is a solar revenue generation project that we're excited about, and that is looking at utilization of the former landfill site located off the 15, just south of the 91, that we repurpose what is otherwise a almost non-utilized site into a solar field that can generate revenue to offset costs for the city. So always looking for ways not only to reduce costs, but also to generate revenue where it makes sense. The goal with that project is to complete the proposal process, secure a vendor, get the interconnection set up, and then be ready to go into construction in fiscal year 26, probably by the end of the year. Moving over to our strong economy, we have a singular focus, which I'm really excited about for our downtown. And this really speaks to the direction that council has given in your leadership in ensuring that we are all focused on the downtown revitalization project and delivering on that. There are 9 sort of sub-projects that fall within that. As we've talked about previously, a number of those projects will be collapsed and combined for efficiency so that we can deliver them faster and at a lower price. So our focus when it comes to economic development remains priority 1 is our downtown revitalization process. Not to say we don't have many other things that we work on, but this is the primary one. Councilmember Daddario, do I see a mic?
Thank you, Jacob. I couldn't get my thoughts together quick enough, but I wanted to just jump back really quick to the solar revenue generation project.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more familiar with how these things go nowadays. So when we're selecting a partner and securing interconnection and all that type of stuff, we're not going to be doing the construction. We're going to be working with a vendor that builds these, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we wouldn't build it ourselves. The really interesting part is it best to own and operate? Is it best to lease the property? And we'll be looking at those returns on investment and which one makes the most sense and bring that to council for direction. But no, this isn't something that we would construct ourselves for sure.
Do we know, and this is 30,000 foot view, but do we know on what type of revenue splits these things normally generate? I mean, is it even worth to go down the road is kind of what I want to know.
Worth to go down the road of lease instead of
No,
owning and
just
operating? Or?
construct in general, right? I mean, if we were to build it, if we were to fund it ourselves and build it ourselves, we would get 100% of the revenue. But somebody else is going to be building it, and there's going to be a revenue split, I'm sure.
Potentially, or not. If we decided to fund it all ourselves, then we would take 100% of the revenue from it.
Right. So I don't know if that's financially feasible in the next 10 years. So setting that aside, looking at a revenue split, what are normal revenue splits on something like this? And I ask because I want to understand if this is even worth to go down that road to understand, look, these things normally are a 70-30 split to the city or 50-50 or 60, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is it even worth it?
We will know what that split is after we do the RFP and we get those proposals back. And at that point, we'll know whether the company wants to own, operate, build, and give us a small amount of revenue, or if we simply get proposals to construct it for us and we would have to pay all of the capital costs and we get 100% of the revenue. We don't have those splits until we get the RFP out and those proposals back in.
And will that RFP include like potential revenue, that type of stuff as well?
Yeah, we can do that work ourselves in terms of calculating the estimated amount of energy that would be produced and what that offset would be in terms of what we
We've done that or we haven't done that?
We can do that.
Okay.
It just depends on the design of the field, and I'm not the engineer on this, so I don't want to speak too much to it. How large it is, the positioning of it, and what the anticipated energy would be derived from, depending on the type of solar panels and how large you build it, would depend on how much we're going to get from it. All of that would come back in those proposals as different companies look at what they think the site constraints are and what they could construct.
Well, if our team is going to be doing the energy study to get an idea of what type of revenue it could generate, is that before the RFP or after the RFP?
I think roughly we can estimate very ballpark-like, and I think we've done that now, but we wouldn't know that until after the proposals come in. It's not an energy study per se.
Right.
It's seeing what the different contract or companies propose and what size they would construct it to, and how much energy would be anticipated to be derived from it.
I wonder if it would be worth it for us to understand what the revenue potential could be before we even go out to RFP.
Yeah, and we have a ballpark idea of what we think it would be. But we've been reluctant to publish that because there are so many factors. We get a little ahead of ourselves, and we don't want to make promises that we can't keep.
Okay.
But it's potentially no cost to us, but then there's a smaller return on the other end.
Sure.
Higher cost, higher return. Really understanding what it looks like, though, we'll know that when the proposals come in, which shouldn't be too far down the road now.
Well, how much money are we going to spend to find all this out?
Relatively a small amount. It's some staff time to put together the bid, which has been done now. I think the RFP goes out shortly if it hasn't already. So it's minimal cost up front. It's most of the onus is on those companies to propose to us.
Okay.
All right. Great questions. Thank you. Keep them coming. So wrapping up strong economy, we've got our focus on the downtown. Moving over to sound infrastructure, we are working on our AI traffic signal optimization project. We hope to have that fully constructed and be in live testing by the end of 2025, this calendar year. And so that project will hopefully be wrapped up and fully operational in fiscal year 26. Victoria's Park splash pad, that is a little bit behind schedule. So the anticipated completion is August of this year, of this summer coming up here. But we do look forward to having that done in fiscal year 26. The McKinley Grade Separation Project, we anticipate being 100% completed by the end of this calendar year, which of course is in fiscal year 26, and having that project completely closed out. And that can't be done too soon for anybody. Looking forward to having that completed. Our asset management plan, we want to get the first version of that completely wrapped up in fiscal year 26, and then talk about potential funding strategies. I think we've talked about this a number of years now, and it's also behind schedule. It's also going to, I anticipate, show a tremendous deficit in infrastructure, as every asset management plan across the country and frankly the world typically shows. So that will be one that we'll see that there is a lot of built environment that we have not funded. And when I say we, I mean generations and generations of individuals where we have some systems that are 100 years old. So this isn't a new problem, either for Corona, the state, or the country. But we think it's important to understand what's out there so that we know what we're up against. So that project continues, and that's been underway now for some time. Looking at our goal of a safe community, addressing homelessness is always a priority for the city. So there isn't anything in particularly new on this other than we want to continue to monitor performance, advocate for change at the state level, and continue to go after grant funding and continue to implement our strategic plan as it is set today. Fire station renovation number 2. Spoiler, it already came out earlier this morning, but yeah, that project has come in significantly over what anyone anticipated. And so we're pivoting on that one and going from a new building to renovating the existing structure, as well as building a new storage building in behind. That would be new. But really looking for ways to try to maximize dollars on this one and still deliver a renovated, new, highly functional station that meets the needs of the future, but also being cognizant of the cost today. Security Camera Master Plan Phase 3. This is a multi-year project, so you'll probably see this for a couple of years, but we continue to build out more security cameras throughout our parks. We're also connecting them in our streets, in city buildings, and we continue to utilize those, and we are beginning to then overlay those cameras with artificial intelligence to help boost their value add to the city. So that work continues. The funding that we've put in the budget for fiscal year 26 will largely be expended by the end of the calendar year, in terms of our IT department is on top of this, and as soon as the funding is approved, we go out and get those installed right away so that we take advantage of them sooner than later. Our goal number 5, Sense of Place. There's 3 items in this category. The first is our enhanced community events for phase 3 of that project. So this is the year 3 of 3 that came to council some time ago, actually, as we talked about wanting to, as I recall, the phrase was go big with our community events. And the community services team has the year 3 events programmed into the budget this year that you'll see as we go over service level changes, to really continue to provide more opportunities for Corona residents to get out, enjoy each other's company, celebrate, and embrace all of the diversity that our community has to offer. Councilmember Casillas, were you, did you
I
have
was
a question?
preparing for the next one.
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to know where we are in I see it's phase 4. How many phases were there?
5.
And there's 5. And do you know where we are currently out of the 15,000 trees?
We are on track. So
Yeah.
by the end of this year, don't make me do math live.
Okay.
I will have 12,000 planted.
Okay.
I'm sorry, by the end of fiscal year 26.
Okay.
So we should have 9,000 planted by now. Last time I checked, though, we are still on track with our tree planting. And I have a nod from our community services director that we are in fact still on track with that. So still rolling out as planned. Really nice to see. You'll see more and more you'll hear from folks because we're getting into residential areas now. We've largely completed the arterial streets and collector streets throughout the city and some of the parkway strips and our parks. And so we're getting into more neighborhoods, and it's really nice to see that continuing to roll out. The last project for Sense of Place is our Innovation Center. That was funded through a grant that we secured, and that project is now getting ready to be implemented. We hope to have that completed and wrapped up in fiscal year 26 and opened there in the library by June 30th. So happy to see the Innovation Center move forward, which will provide more services and opportunities for residents to enjoy that amenity in the library. I see another question?
Yeah, I was wondering when the fully thought out plan for the Innovation Center was going to be presented to us.
Oh, I thought we already shared that plan.
Did we?
Yeah, and as a reminder, this was like a pivot, right? Because this was free money we don't want to give back. And there was a thought originally for it to be in the old police station.
Yep.
And then it was found to be just not doable. And so in our best, assessment of where the Innovation Center, remember we had this like long discussion.
I remember. I was maybe the design is what I was looking for. I don't think that we finalized the design. Did we?
I thought
Like the furniture or?
you were on vacation. I thought we did. It was like in the back
No,
corner of the
I
library.
remember where maybe it was the operational plan. We were concerned about library closures.
Yes.
And I don't know if we had a
Oh, during business,
fully
during library
fully
office
sussed out plan on
I
the
don't
closures.
think I remember that meeting.
I know
but,
that we all wanted to minimize the closures.
Yeah, and to our knowledge, we may not have any.
Okay,
That's the
perfect.
goal, is that we don't want to close it all, and that may
Great
not be
answer.
necessary.
Maybe we could just replay the video.
Yeah, that would be fun too. All right, moving on, on to high-performing government. We are in year 5 of our strategic plan implementation for fiscal year 26. So we continue to implement that, and I'm going to touch on that in the next presentation that's listed. Question?
Oh, you're going to touch on the next. Oh, yep. Nothing.
Yeah,
I'll wait
we'll go
until the
through
next
that.
presentation.
We'll talk about where we're at and how many things are done. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm excited to
All right,
get to that
thank
too. ERP system, that's our enterprise resource planning system. That is the backbone for the entire financial system, as well as it will include HR and other components, purchasing perhaps, for the entire city. And we've talked about that this system is very old. By the time we replace it, I think it will be about 30. So that put me somewhere in high school when the city adopted this, so long ago. And that is a really big lift by our finance staff and our HR team and our IT team. So a lot of time goes into that, and that'll take 2 years to be done. But it's really going to move us forward in terms of modernizing our systems and making things run a lot better than they have. And that includes our payroll system too, which is also outdated. Finally, the last item there is a digital government initiative, and this is a really exciting one where we are looking at how to better position the city to utilize technology to improve service and to bring services to where people are, so that you don't necessarily need to come into a government building, stand in line, wait for a long time to get a permit or whatever the services that you're seeking a reservation, but looking for opportunities within our city to leverage technology to make services available 24/7 and meet people where they're at. And so there's a lot of different work that we can do here in terms of driving people into online services, getting away from paper billing and other things to make services more convenient. And so we will present what that looks like at a future date. This project includes forming a plan, identifying what some performance measures are on that, and then bringing that back to council to show you ways that we think we can continue to transform the user experience for our residents when they interact with our city. And something that isn't particularly a new idea per se, Government's been trying to do this for years, but we think we have some new tools at our disposal that we're excited to delve into and propose a plan to bring those to fruition. So that's the final priority that's being recommended for fiscal year 26. So with that, any other feedback, direction? Does this, we want to make sure that we're consistent with your vision for what needs to be prioritized to deliver on what you hear from your constituents to make sure that we're in alignment.
All right, Mr. Ellis, there's no questions. Let's get into the next one. You're going to provide a presentation on the fiscal year 26 strategic plan implementation schedule.
Outstanding. So we will pull up the next presentation here. And while it's coming up, the quick preview is we are really far along with our strategic plan implementation. And you'll see at the very end of this particular slide deck, there is a pie chart that shows you where we're at. We are seeking feedback and direction on the implementation schedule. And if anything needs to be revised or adjusted, please let us know. We're happy to do that. Once again, it's exciting. Our plan just had its 4th birthday. So it's still alive, doing well, thriving. This connects with all you young parents out there. It's an exciting time to watch these things grow up. But our plan was adopted February 17th, 2021. Hard to believe it was that long ago. But we have stayed very focused on this. I think it's always worth talking about what a strategic plan is. When we talk about our vision, our values, our purpose, those are those really broad, high-level statements that talk about who we want to be now and in the future. Those goals that we list are really the ends that we're working towards as a community. It could be sustainable infrastructure or a safe community. That's the ultimate ends that all this work and all this money goes into, is ensuring those things for our community. The objectives listed are the things we need to do to achieve those goals. And then we have a whole bunch of strategic actions that are all listed that we believe that if we take care of each one of those different discrete projects, that will ultimately achieve those goals. And then, of course, any good plan should include performance indicators and milestones to make sure that we're moving the needle and that we're making progress. And where we don't, because not everything goes perfectly, sometimes things don't go as planned, those indicators allow us to identify that and pivot and make changes to accomplish the objectives at the end of the day. So why do we do strategic planning? It helps us. My favorite definition of any good strategic plan is that it helps us figure out where we are, where we want to go, and how to get there. And that's really the purpose behind any of these broad overarching plans. It helps us stay focused on organizational priorities. As all of you know all too well, on any given week or month, we get 1 million requests to do 1 million different things. And if without that plan, it's easy to lose focus and get sidetracked. And this allows us to kind of use it as a compass to keep us going in the right direction in the midst of a lot of day-to-day needs. It helps us make better decisions when we budget, because we can look at what we're trying to achieve and see if our funding is aligned with those goals, and helps us make better decisions when we have the big picture in front of us as we face new challenges that come up. So our vision is that Corona will be a safe, vibrant, family-friendly community. Our purpose, why we come to work every day, is to create a community where everybody can thrive. Our organizational values are to be bold, humble, driven, honest, kind, and work as a team. We are guided by 6 overarching goals that I was just talking about earlier. The plan has a single vision for our community, that single purpose that we work towards. 6 values, 6 goals, 21 objectives, and 138 different strategic actions that are oftentimes look like projects. And we measure over 125 different performance indicators and have milestone measures. And that's in the overarching plan with many of the master plans that we've developed over the last 5 years. Each plan has many more performance indicators. So we definitely spend a lot of time measuring and ensuring that we are moving the needle. How do we implement the plan? This is a cascading chart that shows you from that high-level vision on the left all the way through to different specific targets in any given quarter. We take all of the work that's in this plan and it gets divided up into different work plans and assigned to different staff. And this is how we make sure that we are moving the overall city forward while keeping our eye on the details as well. We start our annual planning cycle right here with the council at our spring financial workshop, where we set goals. Later in the month, after we get direction from council today, we start to prepare our work plans based off of what's been funded and what the priorities are. We then finalize our budget in June. We report out quarterly on our progress for how all these things are moving forward. We review our work plans regularly with our teams. And then in August, we provide an annual progress report. And you've seen that now for 3 years. I think I actually have a visual of it. Yeah, there's our quarterly reports. And we've received a lot of positive feedback from the community as you have handed those out and shared them with folks. It's nice for our community to be able to connect with us and see very specific data showing how we're doing. And then finally, we wrap that up in an overall annual progress report. The next one is coming out in August. Our communications team, as well as every department that adds their data into this, do a really great job of providing this. So with that, talking about each one of the goals, financial stability, we don't have any new projects for fiscal year 26 because we accomplished all of them, all of this, the discrete individual progress, but there are many continuous efforts. And so you'll continue to see on this that we work on utilizing our strategic plan as a framework. We are still going after that AAA credit rating that we want. We're only one notch below it and continue to chase that. We regularly review our revenue sources. We go after grants all the time. And we're always looking for opportunities to save money and keep costs in check when we carry out our day-to-day work. All the performance indicators are on the right, and those are reported out on quarterly. For our goal of a strong economy, the one new project that comes out of our strategic plan is continuing to explore opportunities to bring additional hotels to support conferences, gatherings, and events to the city. That was the only project that hadn't been covered in that for fiscal year 26 that we're still looking at. Continuous efforts, we still work on regional workforce development. We build partnerships and programs to support youth and adult development. Some of those notable are with RCCD as we look at bringing a new satellite campus to Parkridge in Maine, as we've collaborated with them, continuing to look for those opportunities for higher education opportunities in the city. We are redeveloping the Corona Mall properties, and we continue our efforts to implement park sponsorships. For our goal of sound infrastructure, the one new project is a corporate energy management plan, and that looks at all of our buildings. And really what that looks at is opportunities to reduce costs as well as contain costs. And so an example of that for Councilmember D'Addario, who talked earlier about the individual solar field, this is looking at all the rest of our buildings. And so we see an opportunity at fire stations, perhaps use in parking lots for more solar to be built into our buildings to help reduce those energy costs. They are significant, and we're in a great place for solar. And so those can be done at a relatively low cost. And the ROI can be as little as you could have those paid off in 3 to 5 years. And then you're just pure savings. And so we want to continue to look at those opportunities, but we need to develop an overall plan. Oop, sorry, I jumped ahead there. Well, it is what it is. We're going to keep going. Our continuous effort, there it is. For continuous efforts, we continue to advocate at RCTC. Councilmember Speak continues to do a great job of championing Corona's transportation efforts for our city, and we'll continue to do so with RCTC as new bond funding measures come up and as we talk about the future of transportation in Corona. Moving on to our safe community, we continue to implement our homeless strategic plan. We are expanding our community emergency response, or CERT, trainings. We're providing preparedness training courses. We host events that build preparedness. We're continuing to look at our affordable housing options and more coming soon on securing grants for our affordable housing development on 2nd Street. And that is a continuing effort as well. The performance indicators, as mentioned, we report on those quarterly and we'll continue to do so. In fact, when it comes to a safe community, we measure a lot of things. And so there's 3 different slides that show all of the different performance indicators that we utilize. For our goal of a sense of place, 3 projects are listed in fiscal year 26. We're continuing to look at renovating the Historic Civic Center. Just this week, we presented the operations plan at the Parks and Recreation Commission, and that'll be coming to council shortly, where we talk about that long-term future for the facility and what some of those renovations, repairs, and maintenance that needs to be done on the building. We continue to work on our large-scale recreation events, since there is funding in our budget this year that's being proposed to support that, and all of that together to help position the Historic Civic Center as our center for the arts for the community. Again, lots of performance indicators to measure how we're doing with building that sense of place in our community. Moving on, lastly, to high-performing government. For fiscal year 26, we have a number of projects that are listed there. We're going to keep reviewing, revising, and simplifying personnel policies. There are many of them. We've revised many, but we continue to do so. So many of these are completed, but there are still more to do. Councilmember Casillas?
What's the move voice over IP operations to the cloud? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
right. It's we're upgrading our telephone system from a traditional system to a much more modernized one, and that's actually ongoing right now. And if you'd like to get into voice over protocol,
Nope, that's okay.
we've got an expert here that knows a whole lot more than I do.
I will leave that to the experts. Thank you.
Long overdue. Nice to see it happening. We continue to define our service levels and develop metrics to gauge our success or failure at meeting those levels. That's important as we talk about costs in the future. It's really about what service level are you trying to hit and what is the cost of those. And sometimes we're going for gold standard, and other times we say on this particular line of service, we're okay with good. Good is good enough. I already mentioned replacing our ERP, increasing the number of online options for major city services. That ties into our digital transformation initiative. And we're continuing to evaluate workspace layouts. We're looking at ways to better utilize the building. And really that layout can help improve teamwork, collaboration, the way people work through physical layout. And so we think that's important to work on as well. Also something identified in our strategic plan. The other items are all things that we have continued to do on a periodic or ongoing basis. All those performance indicators are listed as they are reported out on in our strategic plan. And so in summary, we have completed 67% of our strategic plan, which is really cool. 6% of those projects are things that are listed as annual items that we do every year, and we have done those every year. We have 9% of the things identified in our strategic plan listed as continuous, and we continuously work on those, and we have done so the last number of years, and we'll continue to do so. 13% of the projects listed in there are carryovers where we began work on them previous to fiscal year 26, and they are still underway. And the last little bit is that 5% that are the new projects listed for fiscal year 26. So in total, we have 18% of our plan still left to complete, some of which is already underway and some of which is new. Question?
Yes. So our strategic plan covers fiscal year 26. So when do we start the process for the next one? Because it took about a year for us to do community engagement. We had some very intensive workshops. We went around town. I don't love the idea of starting before we completed, but does that mean we're going to have like a 1 year delay?
Great question, and it's one that we've wrestled with ourselves. So I anticipate it's possible somewhere later in fiscal year 26 that we'll return, depending on progress on all of the other things we have going on. And we may kick that process off early, or it may be that because of demands and where we're at with the downtown and many other things that we're doing, that we simply start that in fiscal year 27. There's one thing I'm not worried about, and that's not having enough work to do while we're in transition. There's plenty of carryover because of just those big multi-year projects. But somewhere late fiscal year 26 into early fiscal year 27, I think is when we kick that off, and that'll be an exciting time to really look at what's next for the community. And with that, if there's any other feedback or direction on our implementation schedule, we welcome that.
Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions?
I just want to make note of one more thing. So this is really impressive, and I think I say it when we have quarterly updates, but it's worth repeating. I have participated in strategic plans in other organizations, even other government agencies, and I have yet to see another strategic plan that connects the goal, the visions, all the way down to the action plans, where staff are literally programming in the steps that then get measured, then deliver on the strategic goals. In fact, what is more common is that strategic plans become like an annual like checkbox, and you literally have like a one-day session where you go, hey, how do we do? But like the rest of the year, nobody thinks about it and they're not programmed in. So that's not strategic at all. So anyway, I just want to say that this is one of those, wonky or sausage making parts of government and governing and implementing of policies that really delivers on what the people want to see. And I'm glad that here in Corona, we take it seriously and it works all the way down and all the way back up. So good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, great job, Mr. Ellis. Thank you to you and your team. Moving on to financial planning and policies. Do we have any speakers on any of the items under financial planning and policies? Seeing none, Kim Sitton, our finance director, will provide a presentation on financial metrics.
Good morning. My goal is to get through the presentation without a coughing attack, so we'll see how it goes. So thank you for this opportunity to share some information on the city's financial health. Each metrics that we're going to talk about has a specific target, which is primarily determined by 3 factors. We look at best practices that are recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA. We look at the city's historical performance and comparable data with our neighboring cities. So starting off with the city's debt management, we'll start with the city's bond rating. And as Mr. Ellis mentioned, our most recent issuance, we had a AA+, which is just one step below that AAA that we're striving for, and that was with our pension obligation bonds. We will definitely strive for that AAA rating. We know it's very challenging to receive that, but we're definitely shooting for that goal. The next item is our outstanding debt per capita. The city's target is less than $2,000. This item has been decreasing in a positive trend since fiscal year 22. You can see that in 22 and 23, we temporarily went above that $2,000 mark, and that was when we issued those pension obligation bonds. And we still had that liability. It just transitioned the category that it was in. Now it was a formal debt through that bond issuance. If you factor out that bond issuance so that you can more compare apples and apples with other agencies, we're at $456 per capita at the end of fiscal year 24. Yes.
This is a random question, but I was curious, and you may not know the answer, so I don't want to put you on the spot. But in regards to the bond credit rating, are there any cities in the Inland Empire that actually have a AAA rating?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can definitely take a look at that.
I would just be curious just to know, really, maybe they're doing something different that we are not, and if there's none in the Inland Empire, I would like to know if there's some anywhere, like I guess within close ratio or distance to Corona,
Okay.
or in California, really at that point.
Yeah. We've seen the metrics that the rating agencies use, and so we're definitely striving towards that with our next issuance. But we do understand that it's a challenging one to essentially get straight A's across everything. So, but yeah, absolutely look into that item. So with that percent of debt compared to our legal debt limit, the legal debt limit is 15% of the city's assessed valuation, which for us would equal $4 billion that we could potentially borrow up to. Our target is to be at less than 10% of that assessed valuation, and you can see that we were at 0.96 in fiscal year 21. Did increase a little bit when we issued those pension obligation bonds, but as we're paying those down, that is decreasing in a positive trend, that we're down at 5.13% at the end of fiscal year 24. And then our debt payments as a percent of our operating budget, our target again is to be at less than 10%. We did temporarily go over that in fiscal year 22 when those pension obligation bonds were first issued, but you can see that that's been trending then in a positive direction as those bond payments against that debt are being applied. Moving on to stable finances. The very first item on our list is diversity of revenue sources. This one is important because we don't want to make sure that we're overly relying on one specific source of income. So our target is to be at less than 50% of general fund revenues to come from sales tax. In this last fiscal year, 41% of our overall revenues for the general fund were from sales tax. We have put that that's a trend in a positive direction because this one is really measuring the diversity. This one was a tricky one because unfortunately what it meant is that sales tax actually declined about $3 million in fiscal year 24 compared to 23. So it is something we'll definitely keep an eye on. We've had conversations with HDL. They do anticipate the current fiscal year for revenues in sales tax to be pretty flat, but then they're looking at some increases in fiscal year 26.
Sorry, Ms. Sitton.
That's okay.
And this question may not be for you either, but it did bring up kind of an interesting thought. Have we looked, I mean, I love to see that we're trending in the right direction, but have we looked at other cities around us or, even some cities that really have a strong diversity of revenue source? Essentially, we want to be below 50% and we're below 50%, but as we move into our next strategic plan, one of the things that I'd like to take a look at is ways to increase the diversity of our revenue sources as well. And that could be from, a lot of different things that I know that we've talked about and that will probably be coming up soon. But have we looked at cities that are very strong in this category to see what it is that they're doing to diversify their revenue other than sales tax? Because I think the last thing anybody wants to have to do is look at sales tax increases in order to help just bolster savings and capital and whatnot. So have we looked at other ways that we could be, have we looked at other ways or best practices that people are diversifying their revenue sources? It's just a random question I don't expect an answer to at this point, but something to think about moving into our next strategic plan is how do we diversify that so that we're not dependent on one thing. I would like to think, and I believe that the plan is in place that, once our downtown is thriving, that's going to be an additional revenue source, but looking at ways that we could grow our revenue sources by providing services to the city without having to look at sales tax increases.
No problem. That's a great question. Thank you. Did you have a question?
For the next one.
Okay. So the next item is the pension unfunded accrued liability, commonly referred to as the UAL. The city's target is to be 100% funded, and we were temporarily at that 100% mark in between fiscal year 21 and 22 when the pension obligation bonds were paid off. But the information presented here comes straight from the annual actuarial reports that are provided by PERS. And when they have those market losses or other revenue assumption changes in their plan, that affects our funded ratio. And so there was a temporary blip there, but according to their plans, we are not at 100%.
Okay. And that was my question. Well, it's part of my question because I feel like I'm constantly learning and relearning the relationship between the pension obligation bond and the unfunded liability. So we issued the pension obligation bond to catch us up.
Yes.
We knowing full well that every year the return from CalPERS is never as high as they intend, and so there's always here we catch up here, but then it keeps from then on it'll still keep growing. Mm-hmm. And so, can you remind me of the relationship? So it was between fiscal year 21 and 22 that we got to 100%.
Yes, it was right in between those two fiscal years.
And so, can you remind me of the relationship and then explain the 210.9 million to 81.8 million, that drop?
So I think where that was is a timing issue in their reports and the way they issue them. So I think somehow those pension obligation bonds were applied in between the official 22 and 23 reports.
So it was issued the fiscal year prior, but it was applied the next year.
Yes, there's always a 1 year delay with the actuarial reports.
Which is why that looks like 90%, but really at one point it was 100%. It's just the timing of when it was created, when they put it in the books,
Yes.
and when our budgeting process happens are not all in sync.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
so
that's
now we are currently funded at 89.8%.
Yes.
And that is factoring in the pension obligation bond.
Right, so if we had not done that, now obviously we've been making payments since that time, but that number of 108.3 million of the unfunded liability would be an additional $270 million
That's right.
higher.
That's right. It was
If we had not done that.
273 million. I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then remind me, when is our pension obligation bond? When are we paying it off? What's the timeline?
If we stick to the current plan, it's 2034.
2034.
Our goal is to pay it off a little bit earlier with the money that we're putting aside in the Pension Stabilization Trust.
That's right.
We'd like to pay it off at year 10 when the bonds are actually callable.
That's right.
But if we stick to a plan that was from the bonds, it would be 2034.
Okay. Okay. And meanwhile, CalPERS is still a mess. So
Yes.
we're still going to have to figure out and still pay that difference that is annually
Correct.
accrued. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Sitton,
Yes.
this is actually something that I would like to dig into a little bit more, just because, like Councilmember Casillas, I'd like to understand, really, we took a big jump by doing these pension obligation bonds, but really the hope is that CalPERS fund is going to be doing their job as well. And obviously, I mean, 89.8% is pretty good, but that means that the shortfall is really based on their returns. So I wonder if and remember maybe it was a year or two ago, we had a pretty thorough presentation on where we stood. And specifically, it was that year 10, year 11, year 12, year 13, and I think at some point within the next couple of months, I'd like another presentation on this, just so we could kind of see where we're at versus what they're doing. Just kind of get that whole picture to understand, especially seeing as if we still really want to get to year 10 and be completely paid off. Because if I remember correctly, we were looking at year 11, 12, 13, this is what it could be type of thing. So just maybe get a little bit more granular on that so that we could kind of see how their performance is, our performance, and kind of what that looks like moving into the next couple of years when none of us are going to be here. But I think all of us have a desire to leave this place and better off than we found it. So just kind of understanding what those numbers look like, and I think that the general public would like to see that as well.
I agree. And to that presentation, what I think would be really helpful is context. Like, had we not done the POB, like, what does the bar graph look like? Now that we did the POB, this is what we anticipated. Where are we truly? And then I also think that a reminder in the ground setting of like what pays CalPERS, right? It's funded three ways. One is a return, one is employee contributions, which are set, and then the gap, which is constantly growing, always falls on the city. And the gap is uncontrollable. So I think that's important as well to set the context. But it is a good idea because this was a really big initiative that we took on a few years ago. And we're very proud of that proactive measure. But I think it's time to see where things stand.
Yeah, Kim, when's the next pension obligation board report out scheduled for?
Well, it wouldn't be till next January.
January.
Yeah, so we can do something sooner.
We can do that sooner. We do report out annually now with the pension trust, but we can give you some more information about that. We love talking pensions.
It was in February when we did the mid-year update and we asked to do the pension contribution. It was just a staff report at that point versus the presentation that was actually given to the pension trust board.
Yeah, so we can schedule something sooner than that. We'd be happy to talk about it.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next item, the city's general fund emergency contingency reserve. The city's target is 25% or 3 months of operating expenditures, and you can see that we're successfully meeting that target. The next goal is the major operating funds of the city to have a similar reserve for all of them. So that would include the utility funds of water, electric, and sewer. And you can see here with the general fund, we're meeting that target of the 25% or the 3 months. And then with water, sewer, and electric, that policy was first introduced in fiscal year 22. And since then, we've been setting aside 10% of the net revenues towards that reserve. And over the past 3 years, we've added a total of $5.2 million. So we're trending in the right direction. It's going to take us a little time to get there. There is a combined goal of $41.5 million for the target of those utility funds. And then the last item is the percent of assets funded by the scheduled repair and replacement plan. This is currently under construction, and as we're working with the Public Works Department to complete this plan, once it comes to council and is adopted, then we can complete this portion about identifying the funding for those different items. So in closing, we're meeting the established targets with the exception of that UAL that we're constantly keeping an eye on. We'll continue to evaluate the targets to see how we're measuring up to maintain healthy city finances. And I'm available for any other questions you may have.
Questions?
Just comments. Congratulations, Kim, and thank you. And I'm glad you've made the decision to stay until the pension bonds are paid off.
You're so funny.
Very, very good of you.
All right, thank you, Kim. Moving on, we're going to have Luis Navarro, our budget supervisor. He's going to provide a presentation on the American Rescue Plan Act funding update, our ARPA.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
And I hope Kim stays longer than she is currently. So you only see me a couple times a year, so here I am again to provide an update on the ARPA funds. The purpose today is quite simple, and that is to provide an update on the ARPA funds. As a quick overview, we'll talk about the status of the ARPA funds, final budget allocations, individual project statuses, and what the next steps are. A bit of history at this point. Back in 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act approved a total of $1.9 trillion in funding to address the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of that, $350 billion was allocated to states and local governments, and the city of Corona's share was $29.2 million. And then just two key dates here. The first one that just recently passed, and we were able to obligate all of our funds by the December 31st, 2024 date. And the next date, December 31st, 2026, and that's when we must fully expense all of our obligated funds. A total of 7 categories were ultimately identified as eligible uses of the ARPA funds, and the city decided to allocate funding into the negative economic impacts category and the revenue replacement category. This slide shows the breakdown of the initial and final budget allocations by category and project. You may recall from the last update at the fall policy workshop and subsequent council action items, council did authorize for funding to be reallocated amongst projects. And we did that in order to meet the obligation deadline and to ensure that we didn't return any of the ARPA funds. Ultimately, we ended up allocating $6.68 million to the negative economic impacts category and $22.49 million to the revenue replacement category. Moving on to individual project statuses, excluding the business grants project, all of the projects in this category have been completed. Since the last update, staff issued 5 grants for the Downtown Commercial Beautification Grant Program. And a keynote on the homeless program here, a total of $4.85 million in prior year expenditures were reclassified and tagged to ARPA funds. Moving on to the revenue replacement category, 4 projects have been completed. Going down the list, 3 projects are on track, and that is the traffic signal optimization project. The notice to proceed was issued to the contractor last month. The South Mall parking lot rehab project, that one is also under construction, and the project in its entirety is scheduled to be completed by midsummer. The demolition of the old PD building project, that one is also underway and is scheduled to be completed by August. And then the remaining 5 projects, the ARPA funding component has either been obligated or expensed, and the remaining project will be funded by other sources, primarily the general fund. The fire station rebuild project, that one is the design and the build is currently being reevaluated. The City Park Revitalization Project, kind of similar to the homeless program, a total of $2.34 million in prior year expenditures were reclassified and tagged to ARPA funds. The Communication Studio, construction is complete, and funding for the procurement of the equipment and the furniture has been shifted to the general fund as well. And as for the next steps, we will be submitting the next quarterly report at the end of this month. And finally, I will be back in 6 months to provide another update at the fall policy workshop. And again, to reiterate, this was a presentation to provide an update on the ARPA funds.
Questions?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we submit quarterly reports to the U.S. Department of Treasury. I think I had asked, so when was the last submission? It was the last.
That was at
end of last
the
year?
end of January, if I'm not mistaken.
End of January of this year? Yeah.
Yes, at the, January 2025.
No, is the Treasury Department, do they have them up to date? Do you know, on their end? So remember I asked you, it was, we had reported it, but it wasn't showing up on the Treasury Department. So I was receiving questions about whether or not we were using our ARPA funds. And so I asked Mr. Ellis, and he's like, no, we're using them, right? So the Treasury Department just didn't have it updated. Do we know if they have them up to date?
I will double check on that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And
we
I
could-
tried
we could
searching
submit it
right now,
timely.
but it was interesting because I was receiving requests like, you guys, you're running out of time and there's all these funds and it doesn't appear that you're using them. And the Treasury Department website showed that we hadn't allocated them. And so, anyway, they might be slow. I don't think they're fully staffed anymore. So, but anyway, I was wondering about these projects. For instance, specifically the Category 3, the one for the fire station rebuild. Did we end up expending those dollars? Did we end up shifting those dollars because we're now doing a remodel instead of a rebuild?
So we have spent $2.4 million in expenditures.
Yeah.
And then we also have current obligations, current open encumbrances for architectural design, construction management, and
Oh, for the storage building.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the alerting system equipment.
Yeah.
So that is $2.8 million in current encumbrances, purchase orders.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. And then the other, so you said the last 5, so the park, the 6th Street Communication Studio and broadcast system, all of them have used the ARPA portion.
Correct.
So it's the ARPA dollars are safe. And help me understand this. The dollars are already on our side of things. It's
Correct.
no longer being held over there. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Luis.
Sure. You're
Appreciate it,
welcome.
brother.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to move on to preliminary revenue estimates. Do we have any speakers for this topic, 4.5? Doesn't look like it. Okay, Julie Kennicott, our Deputy Finance Director, will provide a presentation on fiscal year 26 preliminary revenue estimates. Julie, it's all yours.
Good morning, thank you. This will be one of 3, so I'll try not to wear you guys out in this very first one. We're going to talk about the preliminary revenue estimates. You will also see some of these in the next expenditure slides as well to show the comparisons between the revenues and expenses once we get there, but for now we're just focusing on those preliminary revenue estimates. We will talk about the general fund, special revenue funds, more specifically the funds related to roads, CFDs, LMDs, and the refuse and recycling. Enterprise funds focused on utilities of water, sewer, and electric, and then we will take a look at the grand totals. A side note that you will hear us say often today is that these numbers can change throughout the budget process. So we will be back in front of you for a meeting in May and then in June for the adoption as well. Starting off with the general fund. For next year, the total inflows, which is a combination of both revenues and transfers in, is estimated to be $233.2 million. This is a decrease of $0.4 million or 0.2% when compared to the current fiscal year. I'm sure everybody's eyes drawn to that fiscal year 2022 actuals. That spike is due to those pension obligation bonds that were issued. This is the last year that will skew the comparisons as it will fall off of this chart during the next fiscal year budget process. And then the other unique situation that falls in this 2025 estimate. We don't usually have that much as transfers in for the general fund, but we had to make those adjustments for ARPA. So the 8.5 million transfers in is showing in that decrease from 25 to 26. Taking a look at the 5 largest categories that are in the general fund, those 5 are sales tax, property tax, other tax, current services, and other revenues. Sales tax is about 43% of the general fund revenues. Property tax is 29.4% of the general fund revenues. And just those 2 alone account for 72.4% of the general fund revenues. As you can see in the top right box, the top 5 make up 89.1% of the general fund revenues. Taking a look at sales tax, the estimate for next fiscal year is about $100.2 million, which is an increase of $2.2 million or 2.2% from the current fiscal year. Based on conversations with HDL, we are anticipating a weakening in sales tax for the current fiscal year with a slight increase of 0.3% and then some improvement in fiscal year 2026. Next up is property taxes. They're estimated to come in at $68.5 million next fiscal year. The 2 largest categories are secured property tax, which is at $37.9 million, and that's the tax on real property, such as land and buildings. It's referred to as secured because it's attached to the property as a lien, ensuring payment. The vehicle license property tax is coming in at $20 million, and this is a tax imposed on the ownership of registered vehicles in California, and the amount is based on the vehicle's market value, which depreciates annually. Property taxes represent 29.4% of the general fund inflows.
Sorry, real quick.
Yes,
jumping in.
ma'am.
And these are all projections, right, from who's our tax? HDL? Are these
No,
projections?
we do property
These are
tax.
and then the vehicle tax is also our projections?
Yes.
Okay, we don't anticipate a dip at all in that?
We don't in that one. I don't know if you remember many years ago when the state did the triple flip, they moved this particular item into the property tax category, and so now it grows the same way that our assessed valuation grows. And so we are not projecting a decrease in that particular line item.
I'm going to pretend I know what you said. Okay.
Like yesterday.
This slide is looking at some of the history of property taxes. You can see how it has grown year over year. The current fiscal year estimate is an increase of $767,000 or 1.2% over the previous fiscal year actuals. The current fiscal year delinquency rate is 3%. A couple of years it increased to 5% due to the state of emergency being in place. Next year, it's estimated to be about 4.2% increase as compared to the current fiscal year estimate. And again, we're seeing that delinquency rate return to that 3%, which keeps us at the pre-pandemic rate. The delinquency rate, it refers to the percentage of property owners who have failed to pay their property taxes by the due date. So we use it as a metric to indicate the level of unpaid taxes and what impacts it makes on the budget and cash flow. The other taxes group includes transient, yes.
When will the fiscal year 2025 actuals come out? What is the calendar date that the actuals will come out?
I believe it's November.
Yeah, we finish all of our accruals and stuff through September and October, so November is when we'll have like the final for everything in fiscal year 25.
Thank you.
The other taxes group includes transient occupancy tax or hotel taxes, franchise fees from Southern California Edison, Waste Management, SoCal Gas, and the different cable companies, business license taxes, and the cannabis taxes. This is about 6.9% of the general fund inflows, and the total estimate is $16.1 million in the next fiscal year. Now taking a look at the group of other revenues, this is $10.3 million estimate for next fiscal year, which equals about 4.4% of general fund inflows. Most of this comes from different rents and leases, special district reimbursements, billboard revenues, and PEG fees. And then some development agreements and other donations are in this group as well. Moving on to current services, this makes up about 5.4% of general fund inflows and is estimated at $12.8 million. We have fire, which includes service agreements, EMS subscriptions, and direct bills, hazardous material services, paramedic program, among many others. The plan check fees are also included in this category. And then for recreation, it includes programs like Kids Club, contract classes, facility rentals, and passport processing fees. For police, it includes agreements with CNUSD, false alarms, and fees for the animal shelter. And then the cannabis that you see in this category, that refers more to the background checks on business employees and annual renewals. The taxes are in the last slide that we went over for the tax that was implemented. This is taking a look at the total general fund. On the left, under the green header, it shows where we were at with the adopted budget, the current estimates, and what that change looks like. You can see at the bottom, it is a change of $6.8 million, or 3%. And then over on the right side, it shows the estimates for fiscal year 2026. It's about a 0.2% decrease over the current fiscal year estimates if you're looking at the total inflows, which again includes that large transfer in for the anomaly to adjust ARPA. If we are just looking at total revenues, fiscal year 2026 is increasing by 6.7 million.
Okay, and then change here means that we actually got more money in than we anticipated. Not spent more, yeah, that's what it means. I answered my own question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to the special
You're
revenue.
really quick, and I'm not that smart, so I'm trying to follow
I will
along.
slow down. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're good, you're good.
Moving on to the special revenue funds. The special revenue fund we are looking at is Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account, often referred to as RMRA. The RMRA funds are collected from fuel sales at the pump when you are filling up your vehicles. For fiscal year 2026, we are seeing an increase of $300,000 over where we estimate we will finish the current fiscal year. These funds can only be used for capital projects related to roads. Up next is gas tax, and this is similar to the RMRA fund and how it's collected. However, this one can be used on capital projects and some operating costs as well. The fiscal year 2026 estimate is about $100,000 more than the current fiscal year and is coming in at $4.6 million. The last one we have here for the road-related items is Measure A. It is a 0.5% sales tax that is collected in Riverside County and given to us by RCTC. You can see that the fiscal year 2026 estimates decreased about $200,000 from the current year estimate. Measure A is allocated through RCTC and is based on the countywide sales tax receipts rather than specifically Corona's activity. The information from RCTC is projecting a small decrease in countywide sales tax, which results in a slightly lower allocation for the agencies. These funds can be used for capital projects related to roads in the city. Special taxing districts, this is an aggregate total of all of the CFDs and LMDs. The revenue is estimated at $10.4 million, but this information will change as we finalize the levy process.
What's the special taxing district?
The CFDs and LMDs,
So that's specific to the property, so not all properties have it. This is a collective of all of them in the
an
city.
aggregate total,
Thank you.
yes. The refuse and recycling, back in November of 2023, City Council adopted the resolution approving the second amended and restated franchise agreement with Waste Management with an effective date of July 1st, 2024. As a result, the pass-through revenues previously recorded in this fund are no longer necessary. Everything has transferred back to Waste Management. So the revenue you see on the left is when we had those trash services, and now that is why the revenue has decreased so much. All that's left in this fund is a grant and the SB 1383 program administration.
What's,
Actual revenue, it was just pass-through revenue.
Pass-through, correct,
Okay, I just want to
yes.
make sure I understood that.
what's the
Thank
SB 1318?
I think that's the organic,
Is that organic waste?
yes.
We're administrating that?
Yes, we administer part of that program where we have our recyclist specialists go out and ensure that the businesses are complying with that.
Got it.
And we are compensated by Waste Management for that.
And that's interesting. So Waste Management whenever I see them around at other meetings, they talk a lot about the impact of SB 1318 on them. So
SB 1383.
83.
Yeah, sorry. And it is a big impact on them because they're now having to do lots of different types of sorting, different types of landfill activity. So SB 1383 is in regulation to all organics. So that has changed the pickup, not just of your yard waste, but any food waste that's going
right.
in those trash containers, paper plates that are soaked with food stains. Now, all that has to be sorted from the organic or from the yard waste so that it can be used for different types of mulch, but it's still impacting the overall of the landfill for organic matter.
So I'm conflating SB 1318 and SB 1383. So we do 1318.
We
they
do 1383.
And they do 83.
I'm not sure where I think SB 1318 is a typo. I'm not sure on that
okay.
one. I think it's SB 1383.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to the enterprise funds of water, sewer, and electric. This is a combination of all the water funds. We have water grants, water utility, reclaimed water, and water capacity. You can see the representation on the chart shows an increase of $1.5 million or 1.9% compared to the current fiscal year estimates. You'll see there are no water grants budgeted in the next fiscal year, and that's because those are often one-time in nature and can't be budgeted for. And then just to note, the water capacity is based on development, so as building fluctuates, the water capacity amount will increase or decrease. This one is taking a look specifically at the water utility, mainly the operations of the function. The estimate for next fiscal year is $70.9 million. Primarily, that comes from utility service charges. There are some other items that weigh in on this and are shown in the table on the left. The utility service charges generate revenue from fees charged to residents and businesses rather than a tax. So for water, the charges are for the delivery of clean water. Moving to the sewer funds, these are estimated at $44.4 million, which is about $5.3 million more than the current fiscal year estimate. And this is made up of sewer grants, sewer utility, and sewer capacity funds. Looking more specifically at the sewer utility, which is primarily the operations account, 93.5% of this fund is related to utility service charges. And similar to the water utility fund, there are investment earnings, fines, penalties, and forfeitures included. The utility service charges generated from this revenue are fees charged to residents and businesses for sewer. That charge is for the sewage treatment. Now taking a look at electric utility fund, the estimate for fiscal year 2026 is $20.6 million. And then moving on to the total of all funds. Rolling all of that information together, the estimate at the moment is $515.4 million. The breakdown of the funds are shown in the pie chart on the right. And as mentioned before, these numbers will change some throughout the process as we work through the annual levy process and other small adjustments. The line you see under governmental funds that shows capital project fund, that's not the same thing as the CIP. This is an accounting fund used to track financial resources that are specifically designated for acquiring or constructing major capital assets. So it ensures that the money raised or allocated for these specific projects is kept separate from the operating funds.
Can you say that one more time?
Absolutely. Some people will get confused because it says capital project fund and they think it relates to CIP and then the numbers don't tie out. This one is specifically used for accounting and it is to track those resources that are specifically designated for those CIPs. So it allows us to allocate the fund, the funds for those specific projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Taking a look at how all of this relates. Under the green header, at the adopted budget versus where we think we will end the current fiscal year, there's a $1.9 million decrease or 0.4% from the adopted budget to where we estimate we will end the year. Then over to the estimates for fiscal year 2026, that is showing an increase of about 62.6 million or 13.8%. A couple things to note. When you're looking at the green headers and you're looking at the changes from the adopted version, that $10 million decrease in the special revenue funds for the current fiscal year, that's going to be that residential trash billing that we just talked about going back to waste management. And then the $46 million increase under the capital project funds line in the fiscal year 2026 column, that is primarily for the McKinley grade separation. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone?
How do you get a 13.8% jump going into 2026? Like what happened?
So, can I go back?
It's your last slide
Yes.
before it says questions.
So let's see. It's the 62.6 million is the total jump. And so if you look at that, 46 million of that is going to be that McKinley grade separation category. That is the third line.
That explains it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
You're not allowed to retire either. So pension bonds are paid off.
Yes, sir.
Again.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we're ahead of schedule, so we're going to squeeze another one in here. We're going to move on to the expenditures and general fund forecast. Do we have any speakers for this particular item, or these three items, I should say? Seeing none, Julie, you're up again.
All right. We are going to talk about the operating expenditures for next fiscal year, along with the general fund forecast, based on the information we have available today. The expenditures will include all of the service level change requests, O&M projects. Thank you. Which are going to be reflected in the operating budget numbers as well as CIPs. So you guys haven't had the presentations on CIP or service level changes yet, but those numbers are included in these expenditures. This is just to show you that we take the strategic goals into account when building our annual budgets each year. So I won't read over each of those, but those are definitely something that we prioritize in creating the budgets. This time we're going to start off with all fund totals and then work our way down to general fund. So taking a look at the expenditures for all of the different funds, at the moment, it's proposed to be $481.6 million for fiscal year 2026. Overall, this is an increase of 16 million or 3.4% compared to the 2025 budget when we adopted it last June. Personnel increased by 18 million due to new proposed positions and finalizing negotiations with new MOUs and resolutions. Contractual decreased by 9.9 million, and this is primarily from that refuse and recycling fund that we'll go through later at the end of this presentation and just spoke about. Materials and supplies decreased by 2.8 million, primarily in treated water purchases. CIPs increased 7.4 million, while O&M projects increased by 4.
Where are all those numbers that you're sharing?
This is just me giving you a snapshot, so they're all included in here. They are not itemized.
Are you going to itemize them in the next slides?
Not particularly, but I would be happy to email them to you if you would like.
Okay.
Okay, as a reminder, this is all operating expenses, including those service level changes, O&M projects, and CIPs. It does not include transfers out, and these numbers are subject to change through finalization of the budget process. And then again, same thing here with that capital projects line item. That is not a line item for CIPs. Okay, that's that separate fund that we just spoke about. Going to those special revenue funds, these are funds specific to sources that are restricted or committed to specific purposes. This is where you will find all of the road-related funds, the special taxing district funds, refuse and recycling, developer impact funds, trip reduction, asset forfeiture, and other grants are in this category as well. The road-related, special taxing districts, and refuse and recycling that we went over in the previous presentation all equal 86.6 of the special revenue fund's operating budget. Here you will see the comparison. The green bar on the left is revenues, which is the same that we just went over in the previous presentation, and now they are matched up to the expenditures for each of these funds. The funds are, for fiscal year 2026, the revenue is coming in at $4.4 million, and the combined expenditures are at $4 million. And again, these funds can only be used for capital projects related to roads. This one is for gas tax, and again, is similar to RMRA and how it's collected. The gas tax you will see is coming in at $4.6 million revenue estimate, and then the total expenditures of $4.9 million. It's made up of $2.4 million of the regular operating budget, $2.1 million for O&M projects, and then $400,000 in CIPs. Some of the projects included in fiscal year 2026 are sidewalk, curb, and gutter repair, replacement and maintenance, pavement maintenance and resurfacing, citywide traffic signs, and streetlight installation. And then any overage and expenditures exceeding revenues will be made up by using existing fund balance if needed. As a reminder, the projects are all budgeted and fully funded now, but a lot of those are multi-year projects and most likely won't be expensed in the fiscal year. This last one is Measure A. The graph shows the estimated revenue at $6 million, the total expenditures at $6.1 million, which is also made up of $300,000 of O&M projects and $5.8 million in CIPs. The spike you see in fiscal year 2024 utilized is existing fund balance that had increased during the COVID years, which are not shown on this graph. The projects included in fiscal year 2026 are pavement management study and striping rehabilitation. And then again, for each of the years that expenses exceeded revenue, there is sufficient fund balance to cover that difference. The fund balance right now is currently $1 million. The fund balance is currently $1 million. Taking a look at the special taxing districts, this is an aggregate total of all the CFDs and LMDs. The revenue is estimated at $10.4 million, and the total expenses are at $8.9 million. Another reminder is that this will change throughout the levy process. For the refuse and recycling fund, the revenue column includes transfers in.
Real quick, Ms. Connecticut, sorry.
Yes.
Back to special taxing districts. So there's more revenue than we are expending, but we need to keep in mind that this is an aggregate, right? So there are some districts that are actually not
Correct.
producing the coverage that they need to. They're not producing enough to cover what they need covered.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, for the revenue column in this fund, it includes transfers in. When expenditures in this fund are higher than revenues, a transfer from the general fund is initiated, and that's because the general fund receives 100% of the franchise fee, and this is more likely going back to before when it was a pass-through fund. And so now that pass-through fund is going away with those trash billings transferring back to waste management, we have the estimates, which are much lower this year, which again only goes back to that grant, and then the SB 1383 that we now cover in this fund. Moving on to the proprietary funds. These are programs or activities that are supported by rates and/or fees. They may also include grants or reimbursements from other government agencies. The water utility, the operating budget is 64.7% in services and supplies, 13.6% in personnel services, and then 17.3% in CIP and 4.4% in OMN projects. If you want any of these repeated or broken down or emailed to you, I would be happy to do that.
I'd ask.
It's
so
a lot of numbers.
The answer is yes.
Okay. As a reminder, the spike you see in fiscal year 2023 revenues, that's for a one-time settlement that we received of $19 million. Some of the projects included in fiscal year 2026 are waterline infrastructure and direct reuse feasibility study. And again, the difference between revenue and expenses are made up of using existing fund balance. The sewer utility operating budget, 55.5% in services and supplies, 16.4% in personnel services, 21.5% is made up in CIP, and 6.6% in O&M projects. Each of those are broken down by the different colors, and then the total is listed above the bar. Some projects included in fiscal year 2026 are water reclamation facility number 1 lease and sewer line infrastructure. The electric utility budget, 90.6% is in services and supplies, 3.6% in personnel services, and 1.7% in O&M projects, and 4.1% in CIP. One of the projects included in fiscal year 2026 is the wholesale distribution access tariff, Battery Energy. The airport fund operating budget is 69.2% of services and supplies and 30.8% in personnel services. This is a decrease when compared to the current fiscal year, and that is just because expenses have been coming in under budget. And then this is kind of a great picture of when I keep reiterating that if expenditures exceed revenue, we use fund balance. So for here, you can see the revenues are continually coming in over revenues. That allows us to set funding aside for when we do need, any type of projects. Transit services, the operating, yes.
The airport fund is, any overages is set aside in the airport fund. It stays in the airport fund. Is that correct? Or
Yes.
It doesn't go to the general fund?
Correct.
Do we have a fund balance right now total that you can give us?
I don't have it with me right now, but I can send that over to you this afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, for transit services, operating budget is 84% in services and supplies, 8.7% in personnel, and 6.9% in O&M projects. Some of the projects in fiscal year 2026 are CNG compressor remediation and COA implementation. The spike in the current fiscal year is related to CIP projects, which include replacing buses. Activities on these projects have yet to start, but these will be carryover projects and will not be reimbursable until the end of fiscal year 26 through fiscal year 2029. As we start to incur the expenses, the revenue will come in and be recorded because it is reimbursable. Moving on to internal service funds. These are funds to account for departments or functions that provide services to other city departments. Warehouse services has estimates of $200,000 in revenue and $300,000 in operating budget. The increase in expenditures is due to the new MOU that went into effect in January, and this kind of gives a bad picture because of rounding issues. So although it looks like there was a $100,000 increase from 25 to 26, due to that rounding, the increase is actually $21,900. The difference in expenditures over revenue will be made up with the use of fund balance, which is currently at $1 million. Information technology has estimates of $15.9 million in revenue and $16.4 million in the operating budget. As projects move out of the development and implementation stage, they move to the maintenance stage and become contractual services and cost. So if we have anything that's new, that is first budgeted within the departments themselves, and then the renewal years move over to the IT budget. We are continuing to evaluate this fund through the budget process, and so we are hoping that revenues or expenditures will not exceed revenues. We are working on that allocation. But if by chance they do, it will be made up of fund balance as well. Fleet operations and replacement has estimates of a combined total of $8.2 million in revenue and $5.8 million in the operating budget and in revenue and $5.8 million in the operating budget, 500 in O&M projects. The operating budget is 71.5% services and supplies, 21% in personnel, 7.5% of O&M projects. This increase in expenditures is also due to new MOUs that went into effect in January of 2025. The spike in fiscal year 2024 was due to the prior year replacement list, and then vehicles weren't purchased. So the replacement list was for 2023, but we procured them in 2024, so that carryover funding would have been helped to purchase those in that following year. The dip in revenues was due to not collecting enough through motor pool, which is why we decided to split the funds and create a separate fund for replacements. Workers' Compensation Fund accounts for claims related to work-related injuries and has estimates of $5 million in revenue and $4.3 million in the operating budget. You may notice that in previous years, the expenditures exceed revenue in this fund, and this picture only reflects each individual year's revenue and expense and doesn't include the fund balance that we maintain for workers' compensation losses. The increase here is for workers' comp medical claims expenses. The Liability Risk Retention Fund accounts for claims against the city but are non-work related. There are estimates of $6.3 million in revenue and $6.4 million in the operating budget, and this increase is due to insurance premiums, which make up 82.4% of the budget. Moving on to general fund. The proposed general fund operating budget is $230.7 million. This represents an increase of $9.4 million or 4.2% when compared to the adopted fiscal year 2025 budget, and we'll go over some of those details in a couple of slides. This is a different snapshot of the general fund operating budget for fiscal year 2026. This is looked at by department and expenditure type. As you can see, personnel is the largest portion, and then materials and supplies is the second largest portion of general fund's operating budget. This is a look at the general fund budget for fiscal year 2026 as compared to the adopted budget of the current fiscal year. There's an increase of $9.4 million or 4.2%. The changes are primarily from the new MOUs and resolutions, PERS unfunded liability, increases needed to fund workers' comp, and some additional positions. And then I can either go through or I can email over the breakdown of that $15.8 million increase in personnel.
I think it's only like 8 jobs, right? So I don't need an email. I think it's like
You're
8
okay.
jobs. It's 8.5 jobs, I think, 8.5 positions. Thank you.
I am going ahead and passing it over to Ms. Sitton to go over the general fund forecast with you all.
Real quick, before, as you transfer over, I was wondering, this is one of 3 sessions.
Yes.
It would be really helpful for me, and I wonder for the general public, when in these slides, you give a lot of information that's oral information, it's not captured here. And which means that I'm not going to remember it next time. And there are some slides where, especially where there's overages, that my next logical question is like, how are we paying for this? And your oral explanation is that there's a fund balance. Could we include, like on the bottom right, where we have, other disclaimers, like a fund balance for these funds? And it doesn't have to be just for the ones that have overages, even for the ones that are healthy.
Sure.
or the next fiscal year we have enough to cover. I think that would be an interesting stat to see.
Absolutely.
And then also in that very first slide, again, there was a lot of information that was shared. And because you live in this all day, every day, and I don't, we don't. I mean, I know my colleagues here know everything, but there was a lot of, there were statistics about like changes between, and I think that would also be really interesting to see or captured visually, because as you're sharing a lot of really good detail that I was searching for, because I'm trying to commit it to memory. And so if you could do that for the next session, that would be really great.
Sure. Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the general fund forecast. So the numbers here you're going to see are just, they vary just a little bit from what Julie's already presented on the general fund expenditures and revenue budget. And that's because there's some additional assumptions included in here. So there's a lot of information on this slide. I'll walk you kind of through it and then let me know if you have any questions. So just going left to right, we've included actuals from last fiscal year, the adopted budget for the current fiscal year, as well as the amended budget. The proposed fiscal year 26 is shown in the orange box. And then we've got a 4-year forecast looking out. Then working our way down, you can see the very top section is the revenues and the transfers in. So those are the inflows to the general fund. The next section down is the outflows, including transfers out. And then there's a total there. And then towards the bottom, we have a row there that shows the inflows over outflows. And then the very last section at the bottom shows like any use of fund balance. So you can see in fiscal year 25, the amended budget, there's a negative amount that's shown there in red. Our current year revenues are less than the current year anticipated outflows. And that's because throughout the year, we've approved some different items, some capital projects, let's see, including traffic signal optimization, the new ERP system, Corona Mall acquisitions, and a fire apparatus. So in those cases, it's not that we can't pay for those things, it's just now some of that money is coming from fund balance rather than the current year's revenue. And so that's why that additional portion is shown there at the bottom. You can see in fiscal year 27, the net inflows over outflows, there is a recurring negative dollar amount that is shown there. So that's just things that we'll have to continue to look at and monitor as we bring you a budget in future years. Have to look at, have revenues improved? Can we adjust our revenue assumptions? We may have to make some priority choices in terms of the expenditures. But those are things that we'll continue and monitor. This just includes the best information that we have available to us today. Any questions on that one before moving forward? So this is a little bit of a longer-term outlook. We work with a consultant named UFI Financial Solutions, and what they help us prepare is they have a lot of statistics available to them, and so they have these models they can build. This does a 10-year look back, so you can see that dashed line down the middle. So there's a 10-year history. You can see that big spike of when we did the POB issuance and how we had to record that information in our financials. You can see the little spike just to the left of the dashed line. That's the current year amended budget that we just talked about. And then there's a 10-year outlook going forward. So you can see the orange line is the expenditures, the green line is the revenues and the inflows. They're pretty closely matched up. Like I said, is that deficit we saw on the previous page. We'd be needing to use fund balance for if we included all of those different items that we looked at. And then fiscal year 34 is when that pension obligation bond is anticipated to be paid off. And then you can see from there the expenditures start to decrease, and it's the revenue over expenditures at that point. Any questions on that one? So then taking a look at Measure X, the investment plan for fiscal year 26, the estimated amount is $44.8 million that we plan to bring in Measure X. This is about 1.9% higher than last fiscal year's budget at 43.9%. I'm sorry, 43.9 million. We have one-time and recurring expenditures totaling $41.9 million, and then about $2.9 million that would go into reserves. Of course, the largest categories for our Measure X funding are public safety, service improvements, and our proactive debt management. Just touch on these very briefly, the Measure X highlights, because they're going to be talked about in more detail in the CIP presentation and the service level changes. But these are some of the items that we've identified to fund in our Measure X for next fiscal year. With community building and engagement, there's some resources for the library with electronic information, as well as updates to the self-checkout equipment. With our homelessness, we're continuing to fund some overtime for the HOPE team. Our infrastructure investments include citywide pavement rehab, some improvements at the library facilities, including the HVAC, pneumatic controls, and some improvements at the police department. We do have our portion of the pension obligation bond payment that's paid by Measure X, as well as the pension trust contribution that's included in our plan for this next fiscal year. Under Parks and Recreation, we have the enhanced maintenance team, the pickleball facility, River Road Park, tree trimming and tree pruning. Public safety includes an animal care attendant, some improvements at some of the fire stations, including Station 3, a bathroom and a dorm, and Station 6 with flooring. And then under service improvements, we have an additional senior deputy city attorney. So this is just another snapshot of the fiscal year 26 funding plan. With the negotiations included, we're now at 81.7% of Measure X is recurring funding. With this new budget, we have an additional 2.1% that's included for new items. One-time funding is $4.4 million or 9.8%. And then we have reserves estimated at $2.9 million for 6.8%, or sorry, 6.4% of the Measure X. What's next in our process is we plan to come back to the City Council in May with the full proposed budget, and then tentatively budget adoption at the June 4th City Council meeting. And Julie and I are available for any questions you may have.
Questions or comments? Thank you, Kim. Great job.
I do have a
Oh, we got one.
Will the presentation in May be in the same format? Like, will it run through in the same?
In May, we'd usually try to condense it just a little bit, because obviously for the workshop, we can get a little more in-depth.
Yeah.
So we try to condense it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But if there's something in particular that you wanted to either see or don't see, we're happy to get that feedback.
Yeah. And so again, I don't live in this all day.
Right.
But, so I think it was in was it expenditures that we went from like funds to the whole picture, and then for the revenues, we went from whole picture to that just threw me off a little
Okay.
bit, you know?
Okay.
If we can keep consistent on the presentation style, that would be helpful.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. We're going to go ahead and take a 30-minute recess. We'll be back at 11:50 to knock out the last two items. All right, welcome back, everybody. Next up, we got Javi Luna, our CIP Manager, Assistant City Engineer. He's going to provide a presentation on fiscal year 26 capital improvement plan. Javi.
Hey, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, fellow council members. For those that don't know me, again, Javi Luna, your new CIP Manager, Assistant City Engineer, and I've been given the honor to present the capital improvement plan for fiscal 26. All right, let's see. So the ask today is we're asking the City Council to provide any feedback and direction on the proposed fiscal 26 capital improvement plan. Quick little outline. First, we're going to give a quick recap for fiscal year 25, move on to fiscal year 26 proposed. There will be a slide also just to kind of really quickly touch on the 9 catalyst projects for downtown revitalization and the next steps. So really quickly, just wanted to bring back an old slide from those past CIP revamp back done in the end of 2022, where they've provided, or they came up with a new CIP definition, that being right here, long-term investment of funds to improve, repair, replace, and construct an asset, facility, or public infrastructure. So that is our roadways, sidewalks, traffic signalized intersections, our parks, water, sewer, plants. So that's what it was covering by that definition. And then also the CIP criteria for that is what qualified for a CIP project is projects that were $50,000 or more and have an asset lifespan of more than 5 years. And again, so CIP included those projects that were construction projects and rehabilitation projects, again, larger size projects. But we did take out routine maintenance projects, kind of like we're going to be replacing urinals, we're going to be replacing some doors. So routine maintenance of things of that nature, we took that out. And then also major equipment purchases like a fire truck or computers. So that's CIP. Go over the recap for fiscal year 25. So a quick recap. So this current year, we have a total number of projects, 187 projects, with a total CIP budget of about $345.5 million. And here is a list of accomplishments that we've had so far this year. Please also note that we did mention the South Mall parking lot rehabilitation and also the City of Corona Green Alleys projects, because we do anticipate those projects to be completed in May. So just wanted to put that here on the accomplishment list. And with that listing, we wanted to go over just show a couple of photos of some of these projects, like the Mountain Gate Park shade structure, the Well 17A emergency diesel generator and fuel tank replacement, our annual citywide street pavement project, the Sheridan Park restroom rehabilitation, the James Street sewer extension project, and then also our Wharf 1 aeration system improvements. Councilmember DeCario?
Congratulations on your first presentation.
Appreciate it.
At
Thank you.
this event. We've got 37 questions for you.
Oh, fantastic.
So we expect answers right away.
I will do best.
Really quick, I just want to ask, and I'm hoping that because this is a CIP project that you guys are more in tune, but the anticipated completion of the South Mall parking lot says May. Earlier in the presentation, it was the end of summer.
Correct. So when we say anticipated completion in May, it's substantial completion. So we should be able to use the parking lot because it's substantially completed. However, we will have punch list items that will have to be taken care of, and those punch list items are like just not major pieces of the scope that we will take care of in those couple of months to fully close out that project in the end of summer.
Councilmember, can I interject there? Part of the parking lot includes the traffic signal modification at Stan Reynolds and Main Street. Because of the long lead time in getting those poles, we won't be able to modify completely that traffic signal at the intersection, which is going to be sometime in the summer.
But that won't stop somebody from using the parking lot?
No,
Okay.
No.
And then the other question that I had, the CDBG, Public Facilities Infrastructure Improvements in the Senior Center, I talked about that with you yesterday. That's all of the infrastructure work and structure work that we did at the Senior Center? That's due to be completed when?
Yeah, so that is also, that's kind of also like in the punch list stage as well, which is, there's some tiny items that we're trying to finalize with a contractor, but that is doing, that was including ADA improvements, lighting in the parking lot, and some modifications inside the building, so.
I was there the other day. It looks great so far. I'm really pleased, with the exception of one thing that we talked about, the bocce ball court, but that's okay. We'll get there. It's almost done.
I'll make a note.
I was just kind of curious, because I know that it's still being used. It's in use right now. It's not a shutdown or anything along those lines. I just wanted to know, I guess there should be a grand reopening, I would imagine, for that event.
There is.
Or an event at some point. I'm just kind of curious. And then also, Border obviously being done, but I'm curious about Fairview as well.
Yeah, so the grand opening will happen at both of those. It's always a tricky thing when you get playgrounds or the senior center open. You want to hold everybody out from utilizing it once it's substantially complete. But at the same time, we also want to hold our contractors accountable and make sure that each and every little item that needs to get addressed is done before they pack up and leave. But there will be grand openings for both Fairview as well as the senior center. And shortly for Fairview as well.
Yeah, I do want to say, I live by Fairview Park, so I drive by it daily, multiple times. And I have seen a big uptick in usage. I see cars there that I've never seen at times that I've never seen, and kids playing on that playground. So I think was a great investment, and I'm glad to see that people are using it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. All right. Uh-oh. How do I go back? Did I just jump? Oh, push the back button. There you go. Okay, so we went over that. So fiscal year 26 CIP, our proposed projects for the year coming up. So we have anticipated 166 total projects with an estimated carryover of a little bit over 288 million, and with a new additional funding request of a little over 61 million, which brings our CIP total budget to a little over of $349 million. So we'll get into the different funding sources for that CIP budget, for that amount. We have general fund coming in at 13% with a little bit over $46 million. Our special revenue, 16%, just under $57 million. 41% of enterprise funds, just under $142 million. And then capital project funds at 29%, at a little bit over $102 million. And then our internal service fund coming in at 1% at $2.3 million. And then here are CIP categories, also something that was brought up during the revamp back in 2022, and our CIP breakdown for facilities, parks, open space, streets, traffic, storm drains, technology, and communications, and utilities. Those are 4 categories. And so with those four categories, how does that break up the CIP budget for fiscal year 26? Well, we have our streets categories there to the bottom right at just maybe a little bit below $159 million, about 45% of that. We have our utilities there to the left at $127.6 million. That's about 35% of that amount. And then we have our facilities, parks, and open space, which is almost $56.4 million. And that's about 16% of the amount. And then coming in at 2% is our technology and communications with just under $6.5 million. Okay, so we're going to go into the categories of what our request is for fiscal year 26. So we have 49 projects slated with 5 new projects being requested, 4 existing projects requesting additional funding, and then 40 of those projects carrying over. So I'll only be highlighting the new requests and the existing requests, but there will be a listing there of projects that are currently in the queue that are moving over 26. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We see City Hall, Veterans Memorial Improvements. That's a project that was recently approved for us to move forward with. It's exciting, coming this calendar year. Here's some new requests. So for the library facilities capital improvements projects, there's an additional request of $50,000. And for the, Councilmember Daddario, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, maybe it's just the lighting, but I'm trying to understand the carryover projects. How many carryover projects are there?
So there was 40.
Say that one more time.
40 projects.
40, and then existing projects with
with existing funding requests, 4, and then 5 new projects.
The new ones are easier to pick
Yeah,
out.
the
I'm just
blue
trying
and
to.
black. Are the black ones 1 through 27?
So 1 through 8 are carryover, 9 through 16 are carryover, 17 to 24 are carryover. And then we get to 28 and 29, that's the bold green color. And then you also see funding requested in the new fiscal year 26 column. So that's for the library facilities, capital improvements, and also for the library HVAC and pneumatic controls.
So it's difficult to see, but the black is the,
Is
Yeah.
30, are 30 and 33 carryovers?
So 30 is a carryover. I see that there's a small amount. That project is completed. It just, I would think it's just not closed out yet. So that funding is the remaining for that project.
And 31, 32 are new, and then
31,
33 is
32.
also a carryover.
Correct.
And 28, 29 are existing.
The existing and the carryover projects, are we hoping to complete them in fiscal year 26?
Well, that is the intent, so yes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Moving on to pickleball courts, is a new request there to construct 10 pickleball courts at El Cerrito with the goal of 12, but currently listed there for 10. And the additional request is $1.1 million. And then there is the police department facility improvements that we're requesting additional funding for a carryover project to complete that. That portion of the project, we're asking for an additional $45,000. And
Mr.
then-
Ellis, with the Promenade Park playground restoration, is that under, would that be somewhere in here?
Which number is that?
41 is
Promenade
design
Park Playground.
for the playground. So it says install, so 41 is for rubber surfacing and playground, slurry parking lot, resurface basketball courts, install seating with shade and tennis courts. But I don't see, because at one point it was scheduled to get a new playground, like a play gym. And then that was changed to painting.
Rehabbing the
to
actual playground
rehabbing
itself.
The playground.
Don, does that include the playground itself, the repairs and?
That's correct. The budget does. It's a fiscal year 25 project that we
It's
funded.
currently.
Correct,
Ah.
yes. So that's why it's a carryover into fiscal year 26 because we are currently in the planning stages and getting ready to start implementing that.
Is that somewhere in this? Am I seeing it somewhere? Am I missing
Yes,
it?
it's item number 41, Promenade Park on the list.
So
It's just not
I'll
listed?
interject by just saying this is actually kind of new this year is putting the project descriptions. It's just to try to provide a brief little summary. The actual playground fix there was missed from that, and that's why
Oh,
you're not seeing
okay.
it.
Yeah,
But
so-
it is
yeah.
part of the project.
Okay.
It just wasn't called out.
Okay.
Is there going to be a grand opening for the fire headquarter bathrooms?
We can put some toilet
No.
paper.
There you go.
and you just-
Got 110,000 of these bad boys. A smoking lounge in there or some video games?
All right. Moving on, there's a new request for $475,000 for Musco lighting at the Promenade Park. And then also a new request of, $550,000 for River Road Park. And then we have an additional request of $470,000 for the Skyline Trails amenities.
Sorry, going back, there's
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff in here. So line 37 pickleball courts, construction of 10 pickleball courts in El Cerrito.
There we go.
Okay. And that's scheduled for next, and this is for design, and we anticipate we're going to have it designed and executed and
Well, so
opened?
that's a project that's kind of still in the pre-planning stages where we're discussing amongst the team to see if this is something that we can do. ourselves,
Yes, so
correct?
we're anticipating an 18-month timeline for that project. So once funding is approved and the budget is adopted, then we would start design immediately. And from design to completion, the estimation is about 18 months.
So as you see in these project descriptions, when it says either design or construction or closeout, that's referring to the funding more so than the timeline of the actual project itself. So what we tried to identify here was if you see a cost of $30,000 for a brand new playground, that's just for perhaps the design portion of it rather than the cost of the playground. So that's what that description is intended to convey.
Then maybe for the next time, we amend the description, because literally says construct 10 pickleball courts. If this is just for design. then-
Nope, I'm sorry. That was just an example.
Oh.
This is the cost to design and construct them. But it's not intended to convey that it will be all entirely done in fiscal year '26. It's just talking about the funding portion of what is included in that. And in this case, it would cover both design and construction.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. All right. So last item, there was a $470,000 request for the Skyline Trail Amenities Project. Okay. Moving on to streets, traffic, and storm drain projects, 37 projects slated for '26. We have one new project being requested for fiscal year '26. We have 6 existing projects requesting additional funding with 30 carryover projects. And we'll look into changing up that color, Councilmember Daddario, for next year.
Just really quick, when we're talking about the Green Alleys project, do we have an update coming soon on the progress of that? I've been asked quite a bit about the lighting and so on and so forth, and just where we are on that as far as a percentage of completion and when we think that might be completed.
Let me get you an update on that.
Yeah, we can provide-
I've been in communication with our project team, and right now they are installing the lighting. We're running into some unknown utilities just because these alleys are so old. We've hit water lines and so forth, but we're anticipating completing that project in May, June. But at the same time, there's just, with alleys being so old, we're running into just a bit of a slowdown.
Okay, I have specific alleys that have been brought to my attention, so maybe I'll just shoot you an email and ask you for an update on these specific alleys. That way we can kind of figure out where we're at. Thank you.
No, we appreciate that, Councilmember Daddario. And I remember, once we get the first alleys with the lights up, we will let you know. So I think there was something about hanging out in an alley with lights. Yeah.
Mr. Ellis, number 70, the Hidden Parkway median design, which is much needed for safety. I know we started talking about this because the city of Norco was considering a development that would possibly put more semis on Hidden Valley. Do we know if that's still happening? And also, can our colleagues, because I think we share ownership of that street, are we asking them for any money on this?
Yes. So we have started.
I can interject. We've already initiated discussions with the city of Norco. They are interested in paying for a fair share, but obviously we want an update on that project as well to see if they can include it in their project, in their development project. So we are having a meeting with them shortly. But we also know that their city engineer or the director of public works is leaving. So we're kind of in that transition to try to get the meeting with them as soon as possible.
And last time we met, they were like, no, this project isn't happening. Is it happening?
I haven't heard any update on the project moving forward. And while this is impacted by that, this is also
I know,
the
it's
genesis
something-
of this was just
yes,
safety. We have
yes,
cars going
but
across the
I
street.
don't want you to forget, this is important.
No, it's on Joanne's
We do
radar,
not
and we've
want-
asked them to
If that project
update
comes
us.
in, we want to really be on top of it.
For sure.
you.
All right. So I'll go back. I know we jumped, but so with the streets, traffic, and storm drain, again, I'm going to highlight the additional requests for fiscal year '26. So we have $800,000 being requested for the Advanced Traffic Management System Phase 3 project, and that there down below we have we have coordinated 613, a little bit over 613,000 for the citywide ADA and sidewalk improvements. Moving on, our citywide dynamic message signage retrofit. We are requesting an additional $250,000 to move that project along. And then we have our citywide street pavement rehabilitation project for this upcoming fiscal year. We're asking for $11,915,800. Again, the Hidden Valley Parkway, the request of $100,000 for design for next fiscal year. We're requesting additional $135,000 for the Ontario Avenue widening at Lincoln Park. And To close out, we have a $100,000 request for the traffic signals on Promenade Avenue, east of McKinley Street. This is for the design of the new traffic signals along Promenade from McKinley to the city limits.
Wait,
How-
we're getting
how-
traffic signals on Promenade at
It's along
Ritchie?
Yes, it's going to be between McKinley and the Riverside County,
No, I know.
Riverside border, yes.
This is huge. This is a great thing. People have been asking
Sure.
for it for a long time, and I know we had studies. I just didn't realize we were moving forward with it. This is great. I know,
It's for
design,
Mhm.
Yes.
but design of new traffic signals, it's one step in the right direction. Okay, they're just in design.
Well, the requested
But,
money is
like,
to
I'm
go into
excited.
design, yeah.
I also wanted to go back to that request for $135,000 for Ontario widening is to consider that raised medians that we were wanting to incorporate in our projects since it's a main line.
That was for extending raised medians west of Lincoln. Okay. Jump.
Okay, I'm not over that one.
Okay.
85, are we saying that there will be traffic signs at every one of these intersections, or are we considering, thank you, will there be, are we considering traffic signs?
Yes. So yes, these are designed for 4 traffic signals along that corridor. We did do traffic signal warrants a couple years ago, and most of those locations met. We just need to move forward with the design.
Okay,
And
Good.
then we'll be coming back to you in a couple years, hopefully next year, with
Get them funded.
requests for construction. Yes.
okay, thank you. There, have you driven that stretch of Promenade? That's where everyone likes to go fast, so that's the reason why.
And we will also be reaching out to the city of Riverside so we can, because one of the signals will be,
At Buchanan,
yes, at Buchanan.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Oh, one more. All right, come on.
And the $100,000 was because we are also considering the raised medians. So initially, the 250 was to design the traffic signals, but we are now incorporating raised medians and ADA upgrades. So our scoping came back, and we need $100,000.
Okay,
Thank you. I'll come back.
Can I come back? You want to talk about the refreshing of striping and bike lanes? That too. Awesome. Okay, moving on to technology and communication projects. There are no proposed projects for fiscal year '26, and then there are 2 existing projects for fiscal year 2026 requesting additional funding with 15 carryover, so that brings the total to 17 projects. So here we have an additional request for $225,000 for access control replacement project, and also $360,000 to close out the remaining additional work for the citywide camera project for phase 3. And you'll see above that, there's phase 1 and phase 2, and those are already starting to get closed out as well. More carryover projects, and that brings us to the end of technology and communication projects. All right, moving on to utilities. We got, say again? Oh. Awesome.
I'm there.
10-4.
Thought the fire station could handle a firewall. I get it now.
Nice. So utility projects, we got 63 projects. We got 8 new requests for fiscal year '26, 9 existing projects asking for additional funding, and then 46 carryover projects. So here, the first request is $90,000 for the bird transformer replacements at various locations. And down below, you'll see $2 million for the digester equipment rehab and electrical upgrades. Here we have a new request of $750,000 for the electrical cable upgrades for the areas that are serviced by the Greenfield area. Here we have an additional request of a little over $3.5 million for the Old Temescal Road reclaimed water line. We also have $6.5 million for the PFAS and 1, 2, 3 TCP remediation. And then down below, we have 3 additional requests of $1.25 million 1.75 million and 2.25 million for 3 different projects where they're focusing on different quadrants throughout the quadrant of the circle. Here's an additional request of 75,000, a new project of 75,000 for the SDO, or the Sierra de Oro Treatment Plant, MCC 1 and 2 for design. And then we have project Sierra de Oro Generator Replacement, where there's a request of $150,000. Moving on, we have new requests too. We have at Wharf 1, we have cameras, remote process for monitoring and security, and a request of $200,000. And then we have $700,000 for the Wharf 1 chlorine contact basin instrumentation and equipment and electrical improvements. And then a project where we're requesting additional funding of $500,000 for the Wharf 1 compliance flow meter. New request of $50,000 for the Wharf 1 grading placement project. And then down below, we have additional funding request of $5.8 million for the Wharf 2 equalization basin replacement project. And then to sum up utilities here, we have, again, 2 projects where we're requesting additional funding. That's for water storage tank in the 1380 zone, Skyline. They want to just mention that this is a developer-led project where they will be funding for a 1 million gallon tank. However, we're requesting 2.5 million, so we will be covering over that delta. So that's just the request for funds, so we have it ready when they're ready. And then down below for the Recur Booster Pump Station, it's $2.5 million requested, so we can pay our fair share, I believe, for that project. All right, no questions?
Really quick on
Please.
item 165, when you say we're paying our fair share, is that an equal split between all 6, is it 6 agencies in WICRA? 5, 6?
There's a total of 5 agencies that participate in that, and that fair share is based on the actual usage of the pump station. So it's in line with what we own capacity in the treatment plant.
All right, so it's a percentage of use.
Percentage of use of the overall treatment plant and the effluent water that will be generated from that facility.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, no other question with utilities? Like I mentioned, I did want to just touch on real quick the 9 Catalyst downtown revitalization projects that we got going on. You've already heard multiple updates, but just wanted to just touch again on the fact that we are merging certain projects together, like project number 1 there, project number 8, and project number 9. Currently, as we are currently in the design process with 6th Street between Main and Ramona, we're also engaging with our contractor for project number 6 to see if we can incorporate that into the project now, currently. And then when we move on from that area, move on to the second phase of design to outside the city limits for 6th Street, we will also want to include the project number 5, the gateway signage for the historic Civic Center Plaza. That project is, you're going to be receiving an awesome presentation for the operation plan for that project here, I think, in the next council meeting. And from that operation plan, there will be a slew of projects. I'm sure that will come from that, so it'll be fantastic. And then for the North Mall project, a project that's being led by the Economic Development Department and building a concept for that area. Currently with CIP, though, there will be an item in the next council meeting here on Wednesday for the start of the demolition portion of that, of the southeast quadrant, incorporating 2 of the commercial buildings there. City Park, that is at 60% design, and currently we're working with planning for their review of those plans already. So we're really looking forward to next year. And then touched on 5, touched on 6, and then again, South Mall, as we've already mentioned, that we're trying to get that thing open, have it in substantial completion by May, so we can use that parking lot and then take care of punch list items. All right, so next steps. Where are we at? So we are here at the Spring Financial Workshop, and the plan is to bring this presentation to the Planning and the Parks and Rec Commission meeting here in May, and then you'll have your second workshop of finance there in May, and then we bring this back in June for the council final approval. So with that, everybody, again, the ask is for city council to provide any feedback and direction on the CIP for fiscal year 26.
Any questions, comments?
Questions?
No, thanks, Javi. Good job.
All right,
We appreciate
awesome.
it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, our last one of the day, Julie Kennicott, our Deputy Finance Director, will provide a presentation on the fiscal year 26 service level change request. Julie, you're back up.
I am. We made it almost. This one will be much shorter than the others. So, all right. This is a presentation on service change requests. These are asks from each of the departments for additions to their operating budget for next fiscal year. So this is above and beyond what is in their current budgets, but these totals are in the overall expenditures that we went over prior to this. The ask for today is that we review the information and discuss and provide direction on moving forward with these items. I'm going to go over the titles and amounts of the asks, but also attached to the presentation in your books is the complete list of asks, which includes the descriptions in more depth. We have aligned the different requests with the strategic goals set by the city. Under each goal, you will see the title, whether it's a one-time expense, recurring expense, or a mixture of both. And you'll be able to see where the funding is coming from and the totals. Please feel free to jump in at any time with questions. I have all my support here behind me for any specifics on each ask. The first goal is financial stability. The goal is set to ensure the city has adequate and sustainable financial funding to deliver high-quality services to residents. The Finance Department is requesting an appropriation to attend the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers Conference every other year to ensure staff stays up to date with evolving financial regulations, best practices, and emerging trends in municipal finance. The total of this ask is $2,600 every other year. Moving on to the second strategic goal, which is strong economy. The goal is to expand the local economy by supporting local businesses, providing new opportunities for new businesses, and ensuring there are ample opportunities for job seekers. The two items listed are all directly related to economic development activity for the North and South Mall. The total for this set of requests is just over $210,000. Strategic goal number 3 is sound infrastructure. This is the group of items related to investing in public infrastructure, including buildings, equipment, roads, and technology. For the larger lists from here on out, I will just focus on the highlighted items unless anybody has any specific questions on any other items listed. And just a reminder, you do have that full list in your packet. The Utilities Department is requesting to add 1 water operator and 1 water reclamation operator to enhance operational depth and ensure continuity of service. These positions are critical for maintaining regulatory compliance, optimizing system performance, and providing reliable water and wastewater services to the community. Adding staff will help mitigate the impact of retirements, turnover, and increased workload, ensuring the department can continue to meet service demands efficiently and effectively. The total for this strategic goal is just over $580,000. The next strategic goal is safe community. This is to protect our quality of life by ensuring the community is safe and clean. The police department is requesting to add an animal care technician and fund annual range maintenance services. The additional animal care technician is needed to support the growing demands of animal care and shelter operations, ensuring the humane treatment of animals and improved service to the community at our no-kill shelter. The annual range maintenance services are essential for maintaining the department's firearm training facilities, ensuring officer safety, compliance with training standards, and the longevity of the range infrastructure, as well as the flock camera program to enhance license plate recognition and artificial intelligence capabilities. These upgrades will improve criminal identification by detecting stolen plates, cross-jurisdiction activity, and suspicious patterns like convoy travel. Advanced search and alert features recognize unique identifiers like broken windshields or stickers. And additionally, analytics reveal crime hotspots, maximizing investigative efficiency and public safety. Continuing on for safe community, the fire department is requesting additional funding for an increase in the public safety enterprise communication subscription to ensure reliable emergency communication and interoperability with regional agencies. Additionally, funding is needed for weed abatement, which allows the department to be proactive in fire prevention and mitigation. The program is fully reimbursable as outlined in the CMC. The ask for an increase in acreage covered by the Wildland Protection Agreement is to reduce fire hazards, enhance fire prevention efforts, and protect the community from the growing risk of wildland fires. The requests associated with strategic goal number 4 are just over $610,000. Moving on to strategic goal number 5, sense of place. This is to build community through celebrating our rich heritage, increasing access to recreational and cultural activities, and improving the relationship between the city and residents. The Community Services Department is requesting additions for several key initiatives to enhance public services and facility maintenance. The Community Event Sponsorships is a pilot program to attract commercial event promoters to host 2 to 3 large-scale events. The initiative will use a match incentive model, providing financial offsets to reduce event overhead to attract major attractions. For the library, the Electronic Information Resources is an investment in digital resources to expand access to online learning, research materials, and other educational tools for patrons. In conjunction with that, library books would allow us to refresh and expand the library's collection, ensuring diverse and up-to-date materials for all ages, bringing our annual funding amount to $85,000. And to bring everything together, the self-check equipment update is to upgrade the self-checkout systems to improve efficiency, reduce wait times, and enhance the user experience. The enhanced maintenance team is additional staffing to address the growing backlog of deferred maintenance, ensuring safe and well-maintained public facilities. Lastly, the tree trimming and pruning services is the residential pay program that was presented to you all. This is essentially a pass-through account for the residents opting to have their trees pruned outside of the scheduled grid schedule. This request has full cost recovery and helps maintain the city's urban forest, enhance public safety, and protect infrastructure from potential damage caused by overgrown trees. The total ask related to sense of place is just over $500,000. Our last strategic goal is high-performing government. This is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the city's services to bring government into the 21st century. The Legal and Risk Management Department is requesting to add a senior deputy city attorney as part of its succession planning efforts. This position will provide additional legal expertise, support increasing workloads, and ensure continuity in legal operations as senior staff near retirement. The total amount of requests for high-performing government is just over $430,000. Bringing that all together, this slide is showing you a summary of the overall asks broken down by each category, the funding, and the total amounts of one-time and recurring expenditures, with a total overall recommended amount just under $2.4 million. And just to reiterate, the ask is that we discuss and provide direction on the fiscal year 2026 recommended service change requests. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Before I forget, I wanted to just go back to the strategic goal number 5 for the library books. We've had a couple of trustees speak over the last few months requesting additional books, and this might be for Ms. Finch, but so $11,000 increase takes us to, did you say $89,000 per year?
$85,000.
$85,000 per year in books?
Yes.
So is $11,000, I don't know how far that goes as far as books. Does that get
John, do you want to speak to
50
that?
books or 5,000 books?
So the average cost per book, including processing, is about $30 per book. So with the amount that's proposed for the additional budget, it puts us at about 375 additional books. But that is just in addition to what we already budget for books. Currently, we budget about $74,000 per year. So that additional $11,000 will get us to $85,000.
85,000.
It's about
a year.
2,800 books.
2,800 books. Now, is that significant in the big picture?
It is. It does help us add to our collection significantly. So it is something that will be beneficial to the library.
And it says it's reoccurring, so do we anticipate $11,000 every year additional, or is that just going to come back to us each year?
I'll speak to that one. I think you can always expect that there's a desire for more. So we could spend indefinitely more money on books. And so it's
Right.
really, the need's always out there. And yes, you can expect that this 11,000 will be added for every year ongoing. And I would expect a recommendation or a request for even more funding in future years as well. It's always a tough balancing act. And this number was, they wanted even more than this, so.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And I know we're going to be kind of a tight budget the next few years, but as long as we can continue to provide additional books on top of what we're already providing, I think is great.
Yeah, this isn't a one-time to that point. This will be recurring.
Great. Do you guys have any comments? Tony, you good? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Ellis, do you have any closing comments?
Mayor and council, that went quick. That was.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. This is really important. As we know, we set out every year with a strategic plan that outlines our goals and objectives of what we want to accomplish. And your budget is really where the rubber meets the road. And what you fund is what we're able to get done. And so we appreciate the support. We appreciate the questions and the direction that we received today. We will go back and further refine our information. We'll come back at a future council meeting to discuss this again prior to our adoption meeting that'll happen in June. I wanted to thank all of the staff. A lot of work goes into preparing all of this. There's a lot of refinements that go into trying to get this right. And so I want to thank the team, particularly the finance team, for all of their work on this and everyone who helped support it. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And council very much appreciates all the hard work that you all put in. So thank you so much. The next meeting is going to be our city council meeting on April 16th. This meeting is adjourned.